The ACLU's Michigan chapter is calling for a civil rights investigation following the death of David Stojcevski. Now, Stojcevski was a 32-year-old man recovering from a drug addiction. Now, the drugs had nothing to do with his arrest and incarceration. He was instead sentenced to 30 days in jail for unpaid parking tickets, totaling about $772. And you might remember seeing some videos of him literally dying in his cell, sometimes writhing in agony from what was later to be proven his cause of death, acute withdrawal. Now, as I said, that's what happened to have killed him as well. Now, he was prescribed methadone and had also told jail officials that he was using Xanax and Klonopin. Now, what happened is that jail officials refused to give him his prescribed medication, the methadone. Now, that's already being looked into by the FBI. What the ACLU is looking for is why he was actually in jail to begin with. In a letter to the U.S. Department of Justice on Monday, the ACLU had wrote that it was unconscionable that the Macomb County Jail allowed Stojcevski to die. They also said that he was jailed because he was too poor to pay his fines. Wait a minute, that sounds familiar. That sounds like debtor's prison. You throw people who are too poor to pay their fines into jail. Debtor's prison. I thought that was supposed to be illegal. Now, BuzzFeed News had previously reported that the judge that sentenced Stojcevski, that's a hard name to say, by the way, Judge Joseph Bodeker, who sentenced him, may have actually violated the law by not first assessing his ability to pay the traffic fines. Now, there was a 1983 law that said that, hey, if you're going to, levy a fine to somebody and throw somebody in jail for not paying it, well, you have to, that's illegal unless you've already assessed his ability to pay. You have to assess his ability to pay to see if you can work something out before putting him in jail. Now, that's a Supreme Court ruling, and it's also other Michigan court decisions require that they do this before sentencing to jail, someone to jail. Now, transcripts from the sentencing hearing showed that Bodeker asked no question about Stojcevski's finances. He was told that he could either pay the $772 or spend 30 days in jail. Quote, as soon as you pay, you can be released. Well, if you're in jail, how the fuck are you supposed to get the money to pay people? If you're in jail, how are you supposed to earn that money? Find that money. If you're poor, how can you get that money to get out of jail? How can you get a job to be able to pay off your fines? It makes no sense. Except, I guess, if you're looking for cheap slave labor from prisoners, which is essentially slave labor. That's pretty disgusting. Now, in its letter to the DOJ, the ACLU of Michigan argues that a system that has two tracks, one for the wealthy and one for the poor, is illegal. Pay or stay sentences are unconstitutional when the poor are incarcerated while the wealthy go free, it wrote. And it cited the Supreme Court case Bearden versus Georgia. That was the 1983 case that I had referenced earlier. Judge Bodeker, on his part, said he acted illegally because Stojcevski had missed 2 court dates, which Bodeker said he meant he had willfully chosen not to pay the ticket and could therefore be sent to jail. Quote, I determined that he was in contempt because he had made no good faith effort to pay. A recent ruling from a Michigan court, however, found that judges must assess a defendant's ability to pay even if the defendant had missed a court hearing. So even that, even looking at his rationale, what he did is still illegal. He still didn't follow the law. Maybe you should throw Judge Bodeker in jail. And once again, it gets to the question, if you're poor, how are you supposed to make a good faith effort to pay? Now, also note that he was in the middle of attempting to get treatment for his drug addiction. That's what the methadone was for. Now, I understand that you just can't skip court, right? But it seems like he had other things going on that maybe should have been factored in. maybe trying to better his life, right? But the issue here, the real issue here, is poor people going to prison for their inability to pay fines. And I know some people had the mindset that they were criminals. They deserve it. You get what you get for breaking the law, right? Well, for one, debtors' prisons are unconstitutional. 2, people get fined for ridiculous things. For example, you get fined for not mowing your lawn. And if you don't pay that, you can go to jail. One woman actually faced incarceration if she didn't pay $455 stemming from something called a no-dog license. According to the ACLU, hundreds of, if not thousands of people in Michigan are locked up on such sentences every year. And sometimes it gets worse. Even private corporations will team up with the government to extract money from poor people and jail them if they can't pay, often using expensive probation services that poor people are actually expected to pay for. These for-profit companies tack on fees and charges and convenient neglect to inform people that those fees can be waived if they're too poor to afford them, leading them to either pay or get jailed. This is sickening, man. This is a good example of why we need to separate corporation and state and reform our criminal justice system.